Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Monday gossip session. We gather here every other Monday. So, not every Monday, every other Monday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We talk about all the things happening in the bookish world and the bookish community. Normally, it's the trio, but we have our friends, okay? Group text friends. They're out of the group text and they're on the live with us. And I'm really excited to have them here. But just in case you're joining us for the first time, I'm Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle.
I'm Laura from What to Read Next podcast.
I'm Francesca from Under the Covers.
Do I go? I'm Becky from Too Stupid to Live. As you,
I'm Kelly from Boobies and Newbies podcast, and I'm an author.
Yes. And guess what? Fun fact, we are all on Substack. So link in the video's description to join us on Substack. We're writing amazing things and doing lovely things over there. So if you find one of us, you'll find us all because we recommend each other because that's what friends do. Okay. So friends in the group chat and friends in content creation. But anyway, today we're talking all things bookish gossip, live news, and just all the happenings. And we have a lot going on today. I have my note. Okay. Cue card ready to go. And one of the topics we want to kind of cover before we get, pictures up on screen is the fact that there's a growing trend of historical romance authors. So historical romance authors who seem to be losing their contracts coming to an end. There's no renewal. We even have a situation with author Nora Roberts. So Nora Roberts is a very popular author. I just put up on screen, if you're listening, a screen grab from an interview she did with the AP. So apnews.com, I'll have the source in the video's description, the link to the article. But essentially, after 250 books in of historical romance, she's been releasing 4 books a year. She's a fast writer. She actually feels like she does not see herself as part of the romance genre anymore. Laura, what is your take on Nora Roberts, but just also historical romance authors not getting contract renewals and all the happenings?
so I guess there are two separate things. Nora writes romance, romantic suspense, fantasy, and all the different genres. She may have written some historical, I don't think so, but she has run mainly romance. But we have historical romance being a trend it's been not selling, I guess, to traditional publishers, and it's not selling so well. So they're not renewing contracts. They're moving toward paranormal fantasy or paranormal romantasy or paranormal rom-coms or women's fiction. And so a lot of our historical romance authors are being asked to go and switch genres or trying to sell contracts. So we see Sarah McLean selling women's fiction. We see Eva Lee and Sophie Jordan selling romantasy. We saw some authors who were like, okay, I'm going to move indie. I'm gonna start continue to publish historical romance because I'm passionate about it, but I'm going to move to the indie route. So historical romance are not getting also that one of the things is the move away from mass market. A lot of these historical romance come in mass market paperbacks, and many stores are not filling those slots. And so they're moving to trade paperbacks, and those are more expensive. And maybe the market is just like doesn't understand. But it's market trends. There's a lot of conversations about like is it BookTok? They want to read historical romance, do they find the actual like part of it, even though they're a great genre? There's a lot of like discrimination for historical romance.
What do you think, Fran? Because we do have historical romance, but then we also have OGs in the romance genre, like Nora Roberts, who's also saying she doesn't feel like she belongs anymore.
Mhm.
So clearly a lot is changing. What are you
Yeah.
thinking?
So on the historical romance aspect, what I think is we're seeing a change in publishing that also happened with paranormal romance in the 2000s. So I don't think it's as much of a trend of people don't want to buy it. It's just that what the traditional publishers are putting out, it's not what the people that read that genre want to read. So I don't think that they're publishing the right historical romances that the readers actually want to read. I think the fact that they moved away from mass market and the pricing changes also makes a difference. But I think in general, they're going in a particular direction with the ones that they do publish. And I think that does have an impact on the ones that they sell. But you do see some indies historical romance authors doing quite well on indie publishing. So I think that we're probably going to see more of that, in my opinion. But I feel like people that write historical romance are not as I don't see them as open as going indie. I think this is probably going to push them in that direction. And there's going to be a lag in time for that to happen, like there was with paranormal romance. So when publishing pretty much cut releasing any paranormal romance, there was still a demand and there were no books. And then slowly you could see those authors going indie. I think that probably that will be faster now than it was before. But I think that definitely there is a disconnect. And I think that disconnect is probably what Laura was saying, because they are really chasing the BookTok trend and they really want to like market to whatever the BookTok girlies are reading. And you don't really see that as much with historical romance. So I think that if they find one big book talker that starts pushing historical romance, they'll probably change their tune. But I'm actually more excited to see historical romance go indie and get a variety of stories versus just like they can pretty much all fit in a box when it comes to the traditionally published ones. Now, on the Nora Roberts aspect, I am shocked, but also not shocked. Like Nora Roberts is kind of like the OG romance author. And at the same time, I'm not shocked to see that she's not identifying with the genre in a way because of all of the tropey things. Like everything has to be marketable to a trope in romance right now. And that's not how she writes. I think she writes very much a romance, but not picking it apart for what tropes does this fit into. So I think that's probably harder to sell to the audience that they're trying to appeal. Again, in my opinion, both of these is because of the BookTok trend.
Right.
Is that a good thing? I don't know. I mean,
I think we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait to see. But Becky, what are your thoughts on historical romance, but also Nora Roberts?
Yeah, a few thoughts. One is it seems like with BookTok and how fast BookTok goes, it feels like publishers are making very quick decisions before like kind of reflecting on like, oh, is this true? Because like BookTok moves so fast, trends move so
yeah.
fast. And when you have something like Bridgerton's, like when that comes back in 5 years or however long it takes, they're going to be kind of regretting that choice because people
Mhm.
will probably be into historical fiction again. And I just think like, I think there's TikTok and like there's the rest of society who is
Yeah.
just like, what do we do with this? You know what I mean? And I feel like publishers are kind of like, and to an extent, maybe even Nora Roberts too. It's so interesting because like I have so much respect for Nora Roberts. I love Nora Roberts books because sometimes it is just like after I don't know, I feel like we're all reading the writers who have read Nora Roberts, who were inspired by Nora Roberts
Mhm.
and have kind of changed some of the conventions. So when you read Nora Roberts, you kind of see like, oh, it's going a different route or it's bringing in this or it's bringing in that. And yeah, I can understand because I don't want to blame it on like age, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah, no.
a lot of people say my mom reads Nora Roberts and like and it's like it's interesting because it's generational, but there is also kind of format wise too. So yeah, I feel kind of rude saying that because I love Nora Roberts and like age doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But like
But here's the thing, right? We have our family members who've been reading classics for generations and our grandparents and everyone. And then we came and now we're reading it. And I'm like, come on. But
mhm,
I hear you though. But I had to
mhm.
throw in the classics because I mean, we're still fighting over Jane Austen 250 years later.
Yeah. You're still reading Jane Austen.
Yeah. But anyway, Kelly, what are your thoughts on all the happenings with historical romance?
Oh my
And of course,
gosh.
Laura Roberts.
Well, first of all, I cut my teeth on reading Nora Roberts' library books when I was like 18, 19. Those were some of the first romances I read. And it's always interesting to me between Becky and I, we've interviewed so many authors and talked to them and ask them like, well, who were your influences and what romance did you read? What was your first introduction to romance? And Nora Roberts, and along with like Danielle Steele and Julia Quinn and Diana Quincy, like they're very up high on the list of answers we hear. And it's because we didn't have book talk. I hate to be that person that's like back in my day. Like ever since I turned 30, I swear there's a lot of back in my day. But
Wait till you get to 40.
40. The 40 Club. We're like her. I'm joining us tomorrow. I'm coming. I'm coming to the 40 Club. It's starting soon. But I just feel like depending on when you kind of started reading romance, you see this big shift change of like what was going on then. And so what romance books were coming out then. So for example, like when I started reading romance circa like 2008, 2009, there were a lot of historical mass paperbacks. However, a lot of them were also from 10 years ago at that point. And a lot of the ones that I was reading were contemporary romance versus, say, my mom, who, when romance, she first started reading romance, really all she had to go off of was historical romance. So it really is interesting just kind of like seeing the different generational changes between like what was publishing then, what was very popular then, to see now that you hear they're losing contracts for something that was the thing to write 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I don't know. I feel like every trend it's always changing. And I understand, I guess, to some degree where publishers are coming from in that I think there's always this push to stay ahead of like what's coming next. And it's hard when you have something like BookTok that's changed things so exponentially, where one year I remember in 2023, hockey romance was popping off to the point where I thought about writing a hockey romance and then realized I know absolutely nothing about hockey. I decided to write a baseball romance. And then lo and behold, 2024 became like the year of baseball romance, but not because of me, just because there were so many people who at the same time decided that they were going to write baseball romance. And now I see cowboys coming back. So, I mean, it really is one of those things where people are trying to, I think, write to trend and write to grow. And Nora Roberts is not one of those people. Like Nora Roberts was never one of those people. She was and is a storyteller through and through. I to this day reread her Bride Quartet series every year. So I'm really interested to see kind of what Francesca was saying, where we go next with historical romance, because I don't think it's going to go away. But I do think you're going to see people still wanting to read it, especially with something like Bridgerton every 4 years on a new season. But it is interesting to note too that Bridgerton didn't boost the sales of historical romance like I think people hoped it would and thought it would. It boosted the sales of Bridgerton. So
Right.
you saw like a lot more people reading Julia Quinn's books and specifically Bridgerton, but it didn't, and I've talked about this with historical romance authors, it didn't have the widespread effect that I think a lot of people were wanting, which is disappointing to say the least.
Sure. You would hope, you know, the what I say, the high tide raises all boats kind of vibes. It just didn't work out in this instance. But anyways, if you are just joining us, welcome. We're doing a Bookish gossip live show. We're just talking about all things happening in the bookish world. We're talking about historical romance, authors not getting contract renewals, not getting new contracts, but also simultaneously a heavy hitter in romance, Nora Roberts, also saying she doesn't feel like she belongs to the genre anymore. Again, I'll include links to all the sources in the video's description. Now, this one is just going to be a quick fire, so just spit your feelings and thoughts on this one. And I want to talk about Colleen Hoover, okay? Colleen Hoover, according to People magazine, has returned to Instagram after deactivating her account. So she deactivated on January 22nd and she returned on February 12th. This is via People magazine. Again, links will be in the video's description because we cite our sources here. And on her return, all images that had to do with Blake Lively and Justin Baldwin and just the film in general have been MIA. So, okay, quick fire in one sentence. What are your thoughts on Colleen Hoover reactivating her Instagram profile? I will start by saying, sis, you don't have to be here. You are rich, rich. I just want to remind you, you are legit rich. You don't need to be here. Just take the break. Just disappear. Real life is fun. You can afford to do real life. I can't afford to do real life. So please just run me live at home. Nora, what are your thoughts on Colleen Hoover?
Again, retire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fran?
Same. I feel like she doesn't need to be involved in the mess. Just leave it alone because it just looks worse. Like, just stay out of it.
That's what I say. Becky?
At the very least, take a vacation and or please stop using a reputation management company to tell you what to do. Clear. That's what's going on.
Kelly, what are your thoughts?
I could not care less. I will say I am like both thoroughly enjoying the drama surrounding everything,
yeah.
but also kind of like over it at the same time. Like we're still talking about this. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm over it.
We are talking about it. So if you're just joining us live, how do you feel about Colleen Hoover returning to Instagram? Do you believe, like us, she can retire now? I'm saying she's rich. Go do your eat, pray, and love. Fire the reputation, people. They're saying it because she returned a little under a month after scrubbing her account of all photos and all references of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. But also, if you had thoughts on the Nora Roberts of it all, we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So please share them in the comments. Okay, next up is another fandom kind of thing. I'm guessing folks y'all won't probably have a lot of opinions on this. But anyway, again, People magazine announces Twilight is celebrating its 20th anniversary with 3 collectible editions. Okay. Let me know, how do you feel? Let me get a big picture. This is what the publisher Little Brown had released. This is the vibe they're going for these new 20th editions. Gorgeously designed slipcases, gorgeously designed books. Of course, you're going to get the bookmark. You're probably going to get foil on the, what do you call it, the design. Let me know, how do you all feel about this collectible edition? I know the last time we all gathered, we also talked about the collectible edition market and is this a money grab and what are our thoughts on it? But yeah, another rapid fire. How do you feel about Twilight? I'm like, look, it's a money grab. I'm always here for a money grab. It looks beautiful. Will I buy it? I don't know. I mean, I really didn't pick teams during this time. I was too old. I felt like this was past my time. Did I read the books? Yes. Are they okay? They're okay. Okay. Did I watch the movies? Yes. Is it okay? Watch it with your teenagers, maybe. Laura, what do you think?
I've not read, watched, or anything you possibly. I was in rehab at that time when they came out, so that tells you something. So did not. It just passed through it. I still have not watched them 20 years later, and maybe I'll watch them for Substack. So maybe I'll create free content for this.
Fran, what do you think?
I think
A couple of thoughts. I actually enjoyed the whole fandom of it when I started reading them when the first movie came out. I was actually on vacation in Italy and I happened to pick up the book because it was at every like rest area on the highway that you would stop. And I'm like, this book is everywhere. Okay, I'm going to read it. So I did read it. I did enjoy them. Like you said, like they were good books. They were fine. The movies were fine. They were enjoyable. But I have thoughts on the design. Because if there is anything that Twilight is not, it's pink and flowery.
Yes.
I am sorry. What
Yes.
the hell is that? Like, make it black background with some red flowers. I can go for that. What?
Okay.
That is the most anti-Twilight vibe. I've ever
Okay.
seen.
Hold on. Anyone watching this live, I see you all, but it's okay. If you're at work, if you're in the cubicle, if you're watching it from the bushes, it's fine. But if you have a little free second, just look at the screen and drop in the chat. Let us know your thoughts on the cover design. So, Fran, I have to jump in. I agree with you. I love a money grab. I wouldn't want it to be black just because the original book covers were black. I am team make it more wintry themed because I'm looking at this and I'm getting spring summer.
I don't know.
Groundbreak. Where are the hoa 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 vibes? Like, where are the trees and the fog?
Yeah, they're trying to make it classic, I think. They're trying to make it classic.
You know, it was the wrong season.
Yes,
Right.
right. The wrong season.
Not a spring.
It's even the wintry vibe.
Worlds for spring groundbreaking. Like,
Where are your florals?
Yeah, I know. Becky, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of just like, did the design, like whoever designed that book, like, did they read Twilight? Like, do they know Twilight? Like, I feel like it was. I mean, that feels like it's more for Jane Austen historical romance than Twilight. That is all to say. A part of me is like, I kind of agree with you guys about how like the okayness of Twilight. Like, I read it, I enjoyed it, saw the movies, but I think it's like impossible to deny the impact it's made on culture, on reading romance, and getting. I mean, it ignited so many people. Like every time I have an author or a romance reader on my show, like their first foray is Twilight. And I think it's like hard to not deny its impact. So when I see that, it just looks so like, I don't know, like you pick the first design off of Canva. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, that's so rude.
I am dead. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
So this was like my intro into reading romance. Like for whatever thoughts I have about Twilight or anybody has about Twilight, whether it's, great literature or whatever, this was definitely like my first introduction into the world of romance. And the following year was when I started reading adult romance. I agree. This color design, I mean, the colors, the design, it is not fit for this particular series. But I feel like it kind of taps into, we see them doing all of the classics and Jane Austen and putting this beautiful binding on them. And look, it gets me. Like, it gets me. I'll want to pick up a copy of Frankenstein because I see this beautiful cover on it. And it's also a little bit romantasy because we do see a lot of that design with romantasy, which is hot right now. So I
I
do
think
get
you cracked the code. You cracked the code.
Mm.
Romantasy is the vibe they are going for. They want to get this new romantasy audience, and not to bring it back to Jane Austen, because you'll have listened to me rant about it on Substack. I have a dedicated video on YouTube about it. I did it in another live. But I think actually they're trying to attract the new romantasy crowd, maybe
I
Gen
agree.
Z folks who might have missed it because obviously they weren't around. And then now Gen Alpha maybe get some of them. Twilight. Even when they're little, they're saying Twilight. But I love how
Fantasy font. Like, I feel like I
Yeah.
know that font.
Yeah.
It's swirly, all cap.
no, I get that. I get that. It's very interesting that we can all agree on one thing and its profound impact on reading.
Mhm.
So, not for nothing, because like I said, Twilight was okay. I'm not here dishing out 5 stars or whatever, but we would be remiss not to mention just how it really ignited reading and it got folks to read. It's one of those books. So, yeah, Twilight is 20 years old. This is how I know I'm really getting old because I felt like
yeah, I was going to say that's I'm really old.
Yeah.
Back in my age, we read.
Whoa.
I remember back in my day, I remember going to the midnight screening of the first movie at our recently opened movie theater in town. And it was my senior year of high school was when the first movie
Wow.
came out. So, and there was nobody there because nobody really knew it yet. By the time I went to the midnight premiere of the second movie, though, that was really packed.
Listen, when that book came out, I was a whole adult with a whole birth of responsibilities, and I was just like, huh? But then, to Fran's point, it was the same thing. The movie came out, and I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just give it a read. And it was a good binge. Again, it was a week. It was a great binge. It was a weekend. I actually think the weather was bad too because I was indoors all weekend. And it was great. So again, Twilight really made folks read. Y'all let us know in the comments your thoughts on the cover design. But we're just going to move on next to the next headline real quick. It really doesn't need much discussion. Sunrise on the Reaping, the audiobook, is to be narrated by Yellowstone star Jefferson White. Just in case you're not familiar, this is the highly anticipated latest book in the Hunger Games series, which will be available March 18th, 2025. It will also be told from the point of view of Haymitch. So we're going to get Haymitch's point of view. And yes, this Yellowstone star will narrate the audiobook. So yeah, I don't know this person. I don't watch Yellowstone. I don't know this name, but I am looking forward to Sunrise on the Reaping. So just so you know, newsworthy, that's what's next. But what we need to talk about that is conversation worthy is our next headline. This time, I got the news from Vulture. Again, I'll include links to all the sources in the video's description. So the headline reads, A Court of Thorns and Roses TV series doesn't survive Valentine's Day. I'm going to read it because it's really short, but I also have it up on screen just because I'm like, yes, look, I'm quoting the people. So this is from Vulture. Oops, never mind. After a years-long situationship, Hulu decided not to seal the deal and is no longer developing Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses into a scripted series, Vulture has confirmed. News broke on Valentine's weekend, aka it was the worst news for a time all about roses and romance. Reps for 20th Television and Hulu declined to comment. The show has been in development since 2021, with Outlander's Ronald D. Moore originally hired as the showrunner. Just last year, there was a rumor that the series was cancelled. However, the streamer confirmed ACOTAR was still in development in February 2024. Variety reports that Maas hopes to shop the series elsewhere, as Disney has the rights to the series through to summer 2025. The ball is now in another studio court, and they have all summer to prepare for a battle. Y'all let me know what you think about Sarah J. Maas's series, ACOTAR, being cancelled. I find it interesting she wants to go around immediately to shop it once the holding period has ended. Okay, what is going on? Why is this being cancelled? Why does she have to shop it elsewhere? Is it a creative thing? Is it we're not aligning on the vision? Why is it taking so long? I'm sure fans of ACOTAR aren't pleased. Laura, what do you think?
So same thing happened to Jennifer Armentrout. I think she had a similar issue with Hulu. They canceled the show. The From Blood and Ash was picked up by Amazon. So there's probably something to be said. Hulu, Disney might have vision. They might have some. They may not agree on the vision of the book and what their brand looks like. Just I read Disney High, and it's a really good book to hear about the Disney how they brand is. So it might be something to be said, but I think there's creative difference between Sarah J. Maas and the vision. And then there's also the expectation of the audience of how this needs to go. And you're going to disappoint the audience, chances are. So,
Yeah, what do you think, Fran?
So I am probably the one that's going to say this time that I could care less. I read the first book, didn't like it, didn't continue. So I am like not the Sarah J. Maas person here at all. And I'm kind of over hearing about it all the time, whether it's her books or even like all the chatter that's been going on about this going into a production for being a TV series. So in a way, I'm like, okay, finally there's some resolution, but I'm also not surprised that she's going to shop around immediately. Like that's very on brand.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Becky?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and especially because, like, whatever, I'm out in LA and trying to pursue whatever. I feel like it all comes down to people, and I could explain this in an entirety of like 45 minutes. I just think people don't know what to do with female characters enjoying sex and female characters having sex and portraying sex from a feminine female gaze point of view. So the reason why I think that maybe it didn't do as well is because you see like kind of I imagine this is just pitch decks are landing on the CEO of Disney and all of these like executives, and they're all like dudes who have like all their only job is to just save money and not spend money and to appease board members, and they just see it and they just laugh at it. And like I think that like I know that I'm sure that things are trickling down from other levels, but I just think that it all, maybe I could be wrong, it all boils down to no one takes the genre seriously. And like I feel like if this were George R. R. Martin's Court of Thorns and Roses,
Yep.
absolutely would be greenlit. And
Yep.
I think that's the issue.
Wow, Kelly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can speak to this a few different ways. Becky and I have both worked in film and television. And so I do agree with that in that it all comes down to money, like a lot, all of the time in film and television, like always, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. That is always, if you ask any question of like, well, why did they make this choice? Or why did this happen? Or why was this person cast? It's always about money. Like,
Money.
and we're speaking from experience on that. Like, it is always about the money. And I do think that if it was male driven lead in this show or hypothetical adaptation that they were going to make about this, it was not sold as romance, but rather fantasy or science fiction that would make a difference. I think if the author was male, that would make a difference. There we see a lot of like high fantasy do well with like stuff like Game of Thrones, but I also think that's kind of an anomaly. Like I don't think that romance, not romance specifically, but I don't think romantasy is having the same drive in film and television that it is in book form.
Yeah.
And it's because it's expensive.
Yeah. That's
Right.
exactly it. I think it's too expensive, and that's why they
Yeah.
turned it down. They think that's what it comes down to.
So for Becky and Kelly who have this experience, so my question is, because my first gut reaction, because I'm listening to y'all, I'm like, well, I trust y'all. This makes sense. But folks would argue this would be a big money maker. And I know it's within the fandom and the romantasy community, but you think there's a disconnect between how the book community perceives it and what they see as big and what they love, and she's a beloved author, versus what translates to like general population being
I think it would still do well. Like if they made it, I think it would still do well. But a lot of people who are in film and television that have the money to produce things, who have the money to buy the intellectual property to then make it, are usually a very similar demographic across the board, and that is older white men. And I don't think that I mean, it's selfish of them, but it's like, I don't think it speaks to like them. And because of that, they don't necessarily connect with like the popularity aspect. Like, just see how long it took for something like Bridgerton to come around. Like, we didn't have a lot of, and that was at the helm of women. Like, so
right.
it
Yeah.
was being pushed for. And when they made it, people were like, "Huh, wow, I guess a lot of people like this, even though romance readers have been screaming it from the rooftop for years." So I don't know why there's this massive disconnect, but I kind of wish the reason it wasn't being made was more of the fact that there are a lot of readers, writers, bookish people out there who, of their own accord, canceled Sarah J. Maas like several years ago.
Separately. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Myself being one of them. But that's not the reason. And that's kind of like sort of the disappointing thing to me of like, oh, I wish this was canceled for the right reason. Like I wish that was the reason it was canceled and not just, oh, we don't think romance will sell again.
Yeah. What about you, Becky? I mean, in my mind, I'm like, old white rich men, they love money. So I'm just like, how are we letting the money grab go? But Becky,
I feel like, to your point, old rich white men love money, and I think that comes with a fear of spending money. And I think that is what is dictating Hollywood right now. We just had a pandemic. We just had 2 strikes. People are scared to spend money. And I think that like they're only looking at like intellectual property that they know will sell. And I just think like right now, like even like I don't know, like there are a lot less productions happening in LA right now. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't have jobs. And like it kind of correlates when you see an actor who's the star of a TV show doing an audiobook, it kind of correlates. Like I feel like if you see big stars doing commercials or big stars taking jobs
Podcasts.
from podcasts, like I feel like there is so much less content being made right now, and a lot of people are out of work. It's an interesting time to say the least. And it just, I don't know, it just doesn't surprise me that people are going to be stingy with their money, especially when it comes to new ideas, even if those ideas have already been published in a popular book series.
Hollywood tends to be the opposite of what book publishing tries to be. Book
Yeah.
publishing tries to stay ahead. Hollywood likes to recycle what's already worked.
Yeah.
And they've seen, oh, I mean, that's why we see so many remakes. We're seeing them make live action How to Train Your Dragon because people liked How to Train Your Dragon. Did anybody ask for live action How to Train Your Dragon? Probably not.
yeah.
They know what's worked and they just say, that's what audiences like. So we're going to give it to them again.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And if you're just joining us, we are talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses. The TV series does not survive Valentine's Day. Essentially, the deal with Hulu has been falling through. It just so happened Vulture wrote this on Valentine's weekend. And what a time to do that. Let us know your thoughts in the
I
comments
know.
on this one. I will end on this topic by saying book to screen adaptations are having a heyday at the Oscars. Okay. I did a separate video on that. So, needless to say, Hollywood people, publishing, I don't know, you'll need to get with it because publishing is doing the thing, even though we see them making changes that we're questioning too. But ACOTAR is proven, whether you love it or not, whether we support the author or not. That is what it is.
To your point, Victoria, I will say, just like having taken meetings, there are people working at all sorts of production companies who find these properties, who find these books, and will champion them. Like I know them. My brother does it, and they just get shut down by one person at the top. So it's like I don't think it's necessarily like everyone in Hollywood. I think it's the decision makers who are just saying yes, no,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it isn't to say that like LA is full of people who just like
No. No. And also noteworthy, it's Disney Hulu. And I've tried working with them. And they're very particular about their brand. Let's just
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
They cast Lizzie McGuire. Like, I'm still mad about this Lizzie McGuire because it was not grown up. It was too grown up for Disney. I'm like, what are Hulu? And I was one of the college girls watching it at 11 o'clock at night. That series.
New.
Please. So if you do want to hear about the Disney High as an audiobook and nonfiction about the rise and fame of the Disney Channel, and it actually goes over the Disney brand and all the different things. It's really engaging. It talks about all the Disney stars. If you have not watched Disney, you can learn all about Hannah Montana, Sweet Life with Zach and Cody, and all the peoples and stuff like that. It's great. It's a great place to understand from the Mickey Mouse Club to what it's now and how their brand actually looks.
Nice.
I would be surprised if this also got like developed somewhere else. Like I don't know.
It will.
I think it will.
It will.
I don't know if they have in place in terms of like how long they can retain rights to that property, or if like they have to sell it.
Summer 25. It said it in the article. They have rights until this summer
Just gonna
25.
go and sell it again.
Oh, yeah. I would not be
She's
shocked if
taking
that's
lunches
fine.
right now. She's at lunch right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not noon yet. until it's
Waiting
like
for the expiration date. One
Right.
past midnight. Okay, let's do it.
that. Yeah.
It's either gonna go to Amazon or HBO. Like, let's think about it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, everyone, we are going over to Substack. We're going to be continuing the party on Substack for the after show. So again, there is a link to Substack in the video's description. If you're watching on YouTube, I think it translates to Facebook and other places. But just click the Substack link. We'll be going live in 5. But before we hop off here, I just want to remind you, Laura, Francesca, and I will be going live this Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We'll be sharing book recommendations about books about Black joy. Next week, Thursday, we're going to be doing Locked Room Mysteries. And then we're going live again the week after that to do Spring Reading Guide. We're going to be sharing recommendations with you as well. Because again, we go live 12 noon Eastern Time. So do the conversions, join us then. And again, use the links in the video's descriptions to connect with us. And we are going over to Substack. All right, everyone. Bye.
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 Thanks for joining me on this episode of the What to Read Next podcast. If you enjoy our bookish conversations and want more recommendations, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, head on over to the What to Read Next blog for a list of books mentioned in today's show. Happy reading.